I was just trying to get home after my shift. I never expected to see a man collapse right in front of me, let alone save his life. What came after changed my world forever. I didn't just give him CPR, I gave him something no money could buy. Hey y'all, it's me again. This one is close to my heart. If you believe in kindness, in fate, or just in good old-fashioned miracles, stay with me till the end. And please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes in doing good. I was riding the bus that evening, head leaning against the window, trying not to fall asleep. My feet were screaming, my back felt like it had been in a fight, and I hadn't eaten since noon. Just another double shift at the hospital cafeteria. I wasn't a nurse or a doctor. Nah, I serve food, mop floors, wipe down tables, but I take pride in my work. It's honest, and it pays, well, barely, but it pays. I remember thinking, Lord, just let me get home without anything else happening tonight. I wanted to take off my shoes, eat a bowl of cereal, and zone out to some old rerun on TV. That's my life most days. I don't live fancy. One-bedroom apartment, no pets, no man, just me. And truth be told, sometimes that loneliness creeps in, especially after long days like that. But I've learned how to keep pushing, how to smile when I'm tired, how to show up even when no one claps for me. That's what it means to be a Black woman, at least in my world. You carry everything, and somehow you still stand tall. I wasn't expecting anything magical that night. I was just tired and trying to get home. I was about 2 blocks from my apartment when I saw him. At first, I didn't even notice. Just another man in a suit, leaning against a park bench. I almost walked right past him, honestly. But something about the way he slid down, like his legs gave out, made me stop. He didn't fall like someone drunk or tired. It was slow, like he was fading. I called out, "Hey, you good?" But he didn't answer. That's when panic crept up in my chest. I looked around. People were nearby, walking their dogs, scrolling on their phones, but nobody moved. Nobody came. I dropped my bag and ran to him. His face was pale, eyes rolled back. I put my hand on his chest. Wasn't rising. No breath, no pulse. I don't know what came over me, but I remembered that CPR class from church, the one I took years ago just to support a friend. I didn't think, I just acted. I tilted his head back, checked again, and started chest compressions. Hard, steady, counting in my head. Still no one helped. One guy was filming on his phone. I yelled, "Call 911." He fumbled with it. I kept going, sweat pouring, hands aching. I didn't know if I was doing it right, but I knew I had to try. And then, right before the sirens, I felt it. A gasp, just a tiny one, but it was enough. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you." The paramedics rushed in, took over, and I sat there on the cold pavement, shaking, staring at my hands. I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. I just knew I couldn't walk away. Not that night, not ever. I sat on the curb as they lifted him into the ambulance. One of the paramedics gave me a nod, just a simple, silent, "You did good." That meant more than any medal. I was still catching my breath, hands shaking like crazy. I didn't even realize I had started crying until I tasted the salt on my lips. They didn't ask for my name. No one took a statement. It all moved so fast. One minute I was saving a stranger's life, and the next I was just another tired woman walking home alone. I picked up my bag, hands still sore from compressions, and walked the rest of the way in silence. I kept thinking, did he make it? Did I do enough? When I got home, I didn't turn the lights on right away. I just stood in my living room, in the dark, still hearing the rhythm of my own voice counting 1, 2, 3, 4, over and over. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Was he someone's father? Husband? Was he okay now? I kept watching the news the next day, checking local headlines, scrolling social media. Nothing. No mention. Just silence. I thought maybe he was just another nobody like me. Maybe life would move on and I'd never know what happened. And I was okay with that because I didn't do it to be noticed. I didn't do it for attention. I did it because I was there, because someone had to do something. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something about him felt important. Not in a flashy way, just in that gut feeling kind of way. Like I had just crossed paths with a moment much bigger than me. 3 days passed. I went back to work like normal, though nothing really felt normal anymore. I kept looking at every man in a suit, wondering if it was him, wondering if I'd ever know the truth. Then, on a quiet Thursday evening, there was a knock at my door. Not many folks come by unannounced, so I peeked through the peephole, cautious. There she was, a tall, elegant woman, probably mid-50s, dressed like she stepped out of a magazine. She held a bouquet of fresh white lilies in one hand and a small envelope in the other. I opened the door slow. "Are you Miss Carter?" she asked, polite but with a kind of urgency behind her eyes. I nodded, still confused. She smiled and said, "The man you saved, he wants to thank you in person." My heart skipped. I hadn't told anyone. How did they even find me? Before I could say anything, she handed me the flowers and pressed the envelope into my hand. Inside was a handwritten note, simple but powerful. It read, "You didn't just save my life, you gave me a second chance. Please allow me the honor of meeting you." No signature, no name, just that. The woman said a car would be by the next day if I was willing. I didn't sleep that night either, but it wasn't from worry. It was curiosity. Who was he, and why did this feel like the beginning of something I couldn't explain? The next day, I stood outside my apartment in my best clothes, still not fancy, just presentable, and waited. I didn't know where I was going, but somehow deep down, I knew everything was about to change. The car that pulled up was sleek and silent, one of those luxury ones you only see in movies or parked outside five-star hotels. A driver stepped out, called me by name, opened the door like I was someone important. I didn't know how to act, so I just smiled awkwardly and got in. The ride was quiet, smooth, and way too clean. My nerves were louder than the engine. We pulled up to a private clinic, not a regular hospital. This place looked like a high-end retreat, tucked away behind iron gates and perfectly trimmed hedges. I was led inside, past soft lights and polished floors, until finally we stopped in front of a room with tall glass doors. He was sitting there, propped up in bed, reading something on a tablet. His hair was neatly combed back, a blanket across his lap, and when he looked up and saw me, he smiled like I was the person he'd been waiting on for years. "You're real," he said softly. I laughed a little, mostly out of shock. "I could say the same thing." He gestured for me to sit. "I wanted to look you in the eye, to say thank you properly." I sat down and nodded, still unsure what to say. "You saved me," he said. "The doctors said if you hadn't done CPR when you did, I'd be gone." I told him I was just in the right place at the right time, that anyone would have done the same. But he shook his head. "No," he said. "Most people walk by. You didn't." Then he told me his name. I blinked. I'd heard it before. On TV, in articles. He was one of those people who owned companies, made headlines, donated millions, and I'd saved him on a sidewalk like it was nothing. I didn't know what to feel. He didn't act rich or arrogant. He was kind, calm, grateful, and honestly, he looked lonely. That day, we didn't talk about money. We talked about life, about how fragile it is, and how sometimes the most unexpected people can end up saving each other. I remember sitting there across from him and feeling like the whole world had slowed down. He wasn't what I expected, not flashy, not distant, just a man who'd been brought back from the edge, trying to figure out what to do with his second shot at life. I've had people work for me, flatter me, fear me, he said quietly, looking out the window. But no one's ever saved me. Not like that. Not without wanting something back. I didn't know how to respond. I just told him the truth. I didn't save you for a reward, I said. I saved you because I could, because I'd want someone to do the same if it was my brother or my neighbor, or me. He looked back at me like he hadn't heard that kind of honesty in a long time, maybe ever. We sat in silence for a minute, letting the weight of it all settle. I asked how he was feeling, and he told me recovery was going well. But then he added something that stayed with me. He said, "What I'm recovering from isn't just the heart stopping. It's the life I was living before that." He went on to tell me how his days were full but empty. Meetings, deals, events, all noise, but no real connection, no real kindness. I told him my life was the opposite. Hard, yes, but real, grounded. I see people, I feel things, even when I wish I didn't. We laughed a little. He asked me about my work, my family, where I grew up. I told him about my mama, who used to say, "Help who you can, even if all you can give is your hands." I guess that's all I gave him that night, my hands. And somehow, that was enough. By the end of the visit, we weren't billionaire and stranger anymore. We were just two souls who collided in a moment that neither of us could forget. When I got up to leave, he said, "This isn't the end of our story. I hope you know that." And something in his voice told me he meant it. A week later, I got a call. It was the same woman who brought me the flowers. Her voice was warm but businesslike. "He'd like to see you again," she said. This time, it wasn't at the clinic. It was his office, downtown, the kind of place with glass walls, art on the ceilings, and receptionists who looked like they walked out of Fashion Week. He greeted me like we'd been friends for years, not weeks. We sat in a quiet room, just the two of us, and that's when he said it. "I want to help you." I blinked. "Help me how?" He smiled gently. "You helped me live. Now I want to help you live better." He offered to pay off my debts, move me into a better apartment, even help my mama with her medical bills. But what got me most was the job offer. He wanted me to work at one of his foundations, said he needed people who understood real struggle, people with heart. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't used to anyone offering me anything without strings. But he wasn't trying to buy me. He was trying to honor what I'd done. And honestly, it felt right. Like this was bigger than both of us. Starting at the foundation changed everything. I wasn't just clocking in for a paycheck anymore. I was part of something that actually mattered. We worked with young people from rough neighborhoods, single moms trying to rebuild, folks society usually forgets. And every time I sat in a room and shared my story, I saw their faces shift, like they were seeing possibility for the first time. Not because I was special, but because I was just like them. He gave me the space to do that. Not just with money, but with belief. He didn't micromanage or treat me like a charity case. He respected me, trusted me, and let me grow into something I never saw coming. One day he pulled me aside and said, "You didn't just save my life, you gave it meaning." That hit me deep, because in a way, he gave mine new meaning too. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, thriving. We became close, not romantically, but in a way that was just as intimate. We shared hard truths, deep laughs, quiet moments. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me when we were out at events, like he was still trying to figure out how a stranger on a sidewalk had become one of the few people he trusted. And me? I stopped doubting myself so much. I stopped shrinking. I realized my voice mattered, my story mattered. He even set up a program in my name, The Hands That Save, free CPR training in low income areas. Hundreds of people have taken that course now. I still go sometimes, stand in the back and smile when a young girl steps up and starts counting just like I did that night. It's funny, isn't it? One moment, one decision, and it changed two lives. His heart stopped, but mine started beating in a whole new way. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the quiet of my apartment, now a brighter, warmer place than it used to be, I replay that night in my head. The sidewalk, the sirens, my hands pressing down on his chest. I wonder what would have happened if I'd just walked by like everyone else, if I'd ignored that tug in my spirit, but I didn't. And because of that, everything in my life shifted. Not overnight, not in some fairy tale way, but slowly, steadily, like rain filling up a dry well. People always say things like, God puts you where you need to be. I believe that now. I was tired, worn out, just trying to get home. But maybe home wasn't just the place I was headed. Maybe it was the purpose I hadn't found yet. What I did that night wasn't heroic, it was human. I didn't have a cape. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I was just a black woman with tired feet and a big heart who saw someone in need and stepped in. And somehow, that moment reminded him of who he could be too. Not just a man with money, but a man with meaning. We still talk every week or so. He checks on my mama now, like she's his own. Sends her flowers, makes her laugh. He's not just grateful, he's different, softer, realer. And me? I've grown into someone I barely recognize, not because I was rescued, but because I realized I'd been powerful all along. I've learned that the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more people willing to show up, to kneel on a cold sidewalk and say, I got you, even when no one else will. That night, I saved a billionaire. But in a way, he saved me too. Not with his wealth, but with what he gave back to the world after being reminded that it's worth saving. And I'll carry that for the rest of my life. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I know it's not something you hear every day, a regular black woman giving CPR to a stranger, only to find out he was one of the richest men in the country. But you know what? That's not the part that matters most. What matters is that I chose to stop. I chose to care. And that choice, it changed two lives forever. You don't have to be perfect to make a difference. You don't need money or status or some special title. You just need a heart that's willing to act when it counts. And maybe some faith that even the smallest act of courage can ripple farther than you'll ever know. So, if you're watching this, I want to leave you with this. You matter. Your kindness matters. Your presence, your voice, your willingness to show up, it all matters. And maybe, just maybe, someone's waiting for you to be their miracle. If this story touched you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes in goodness, or someone who needs to be reminded of it. Thank you for spending time with me today. This is my story, but it could be anyone's. It could be yours next. Be the one who stops. Be the one who stays. Be the one who saves. Until next time, stay kind.